Hello everybody, how are you today? I trust you are well. Welcome to my channel on inner transformation, poetry and fabric art. I'm GhairO. If you've landed here for the first time, welcome and welcome back if you've already been here. And if I could ask you to remember to like and subscribe if the information and data resonates with you. It really helps me, and it gives me an idea of what to post. So today I want to speak a few minutes about ego death, because someone asked me what exactly is ego death, and I thought that's a very important question, because sooner or later, when we're on a path of spiritual development and personal evolution, we will go through an ego death, or an ego degradation, as some people call it, which is actually the more accurate term, because the ego never really dies completely unless you pass over into another dimension when you need to let go of the ego. So it's not, you never go through a complete death. The ego never dies completely, but it becomes degraded or downgraded. So degradation is a accurate term to use, but most people know it as ego death. So for now, we'll call it ego death. And I want to just highlight some of the things that ego death entails. So if this topic interests you, don't scroll down, listen to the end, and then leave your comments below, and we can consider talking more about it in another video. So let's quickly go through again what the ego actually is before we talk about the death of an ego. The ego, in terms of spiritual understanding, is everything that makes up your personality, that your higher self has used, your soul self, your fractal from source, has used in order to create an avatar body that can operate on the third dimension. Does that make sense? So ego entails your parentage, your genetic heritage, your spiritual lineages, your culture, your country, your gender, your education or your lack of education, your skin color, your accent, your experiences, your biological family, everything that makes your spirit move in material form is the ego. So the ego has a name, and it gives itself an identity based on all those criteria. And I'm sure you can think of more. It gives itself an identity, and then it becomes attached to that identity in order to operate and function and learn lessons on the third dimension in material form. So what happens when the ego dies, or when the ego is forced to degrade itself? Sometimes sometimes, or not sometimes, always on our life's journey, we will go through a number of traumas or happenings or events that will break down what the higher self has created in order for more of soul essence to emerge. Got that? So once your consciousness, once your mind understands that it isn't that, or once the soul understands via the mind that it isn't the ego, it's not all of those things that make up your identity, that those things are only coverings or garbs for the soul. The soul will then create a number of events or traumas or happenings or experiences which will shatter the ego in order for more of soul essence to emerge and for you to realize that you are soul, source essence in a body, mind, and ego. When that happens, when the soul starts stretching and smashing and breaking and cracking the ego, you will start to go through what spiritual teachers call the dark night of the soul, where the soul grapples with some of the things that it has allowed the ego to do. And those things normally revolve around all the aspects of third dimensional life, which is illusionary, but which you need in order to acquire certain lessons. So when you go through the dark night of the soul, in that grappling and battle between the soul and the ego, a number of things can happen which would make you want to do things which you wouldn't normally do. For example, you could become depressed. You could, during a dark night of the soul, you could change friends, change careers, want to go inward and become a hermit for a while in order to do more reflection. You may, spirit itself might get involved, so you may lose your job, you may lose your home, you may lose normal relationships, and in that way, slowly, the soul peels what the ego has created around the soul in order to survive. So the soul tries to take over, enters the heart space and stretches the heart space in order to allow more light into the heart chakra so that you can evolve, you can absorb your spiritual upgrade. So the ego then dies. So in simple terms, that's what an ego death is, or an ego degradation. What else? Okay. A lot of people, when they hear about ego death, they become very fearful. And they create more and more problems by trying to prevent it. And that makes things worse, because when you try to prevent an ego death, Source and Spirit will send you many, many messages and knocks on the door for you to walk through and journey across the ego death in order for your soul to evolve. So it's not in terms of your personal evolution journey, personal development path. It's not in your interest to oppose the happenings around an ego death. It is much more conducive to the evolution of your soul for you to flow within the different happenings and occurrences and pain that you go through when the ego gets stripped by your soul. Because you yourself, before you embodied onto the third dimension, you yourself decided when the ego would degrade itself in order for soul to shine through. So, from my perspective, I would say that when you realize that your ego is being degraded, it's much better to welcome and embrace the process. So even if everything around you collapses during an ego death or a dark night of the soul, in terms of your journey, it is much, much more conducive to your evolution just to go with the flow. That's easier said than done, because an ego death or an ego degradation can be very, very painful. It's like, you're stripping away, you're going through a dark, cold winter, and you're stripping away clothes and coats and overcoats and umbrellas and boots, and you have to stand naked in the icy cold. That's basically what it means, what the soul goes through. You stand naked before source light in order to accept your upgrade, your evolution.